Welcome to the Chef's Kitchen. I'm your host, Nicole Gaffney, and we're here today with Chef Michael Solomonov. He's the co-owner of Zahav. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's always great to have you here. What are we making today?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so what we're gonna make is lamb shawarma. All right,
I like
and I do
the
air quotes because everybody, what's your association with shawarma?
A pita, a big messy sandwich.
And also like the vertical thing, which you could never really build in your house without getting like, without burning down, quite honestly.
I mean, if there's a will, there's a way.
I know,
but I want to see your method.
So what we like to do is we like to get the essence of the street food, the soul, that roasted meat over charcoal thing going on, which is awesome, but we want to bring that spirit to the home, right? So we start with a lamb shoulder, which looks honestly a little bit terrifying. Right?
It's not the prettiest piece of meat I've ever seen.
Exactly, but that's the beautiful thing about these like gnarly cuts of meat. They've got the right amount of fat, they've got like enough bone where they taste like something. Like, of course, filet mignon is like much easier to cook. You can slice it, but there's nothing really going on. And for this, we want spice, we want to like slow roast, and we want it to be like unctuous and delicious, all right? And the beautiful thing about lamb shoulders is they're still actually very inexpensive. Right?
Absolutely.
Back in the day, I don't know if like I sound like an old man, but we would always say, well, you know, I remember when like skate was cheap or mussels were cheap or what cut of meat? Hanger steaks. Skirt steaks. Oh my God. Skirt steaks are like so crazy expensive.
They're more expensive than filet.
We can't even use them at the restaurant. They're so expensive. So the beautiful thing about lamb shoulder is like most people are still terrified of them. And they're probably the best cut, in my opinion, of any red meat.
Really?
They've got everything going on. At Zahav, we do a lamb shoulder that is like our signature dish that we smoke confit and chicken fat and then glaze in pomegranate juice. And it's like what has fueled our restaurant.
Yeah, that's your signature.
It is.
So what are you doing? You're trimming this up?
So what I'm doing is basically I'm opening it up and I'm trimming it up. And the reason I'm doing that is to get like some of the unnecessary pieces of fat. And there's nothing like super scientific about this too. You just want to cut out a little bit of
just like
fat.
The big chunks that you kind of see.
Exactly, because you want to open them up so when it's roasting, it renders properly. And when you slice it, you don't get a big hunk of fat. So we're just going to do this, and we want it to get it to sort of like something that is a little bit more flat because we're going to end up rolling it up, but more importantly, we're going to end up seasoning it and curing it overnight.
That's what it's all about. It's all about the seasoning.
100%, and that is the way for us. Like we have been trying to describe or like articulate Israeli cuisine, right?
And I'd say you've done a really nice job of that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. You don't have to say that because we're here on camera,
I mean,
I do appreciate it.
Let's be honest, you're Michael Solomonov.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks also for pronouncing my last name correctly.
Oh,
that never happens. But so what we're trying to do is basically describe 100 different cultures in one restaurant in Eastern Pennsylvania, right? And the way for us to do that, to describe the Moroccan, the Yemenite, the Bulgarian, is through spices and through different techniques, right? So spicing is of the utmost importance. Also, back in the day, spices were the sort of non-perishable, right? The spices went all over the world and they helped sort of define or recreate certain holidays, different traditions throughout you know, like 1,000 years of cooking, right? So food is very important in Jewish cooking. Food is like, obviously, in seasoning is very important in every culture and cuisine. I mean, think about some of your best memories growing up. They have to do with food.
They all revolve around food. What about you? I'm sure you have some incredible memories also.
Well, they were. I mean, it was like really like I hate to be the chef that uses the cliche of the grandparent, but it's true. I just did it. My grandmother would make borekas, which are these.
We made them one of the last times you were here. Yeah.
Exactly. They're sort of like what I grew up with, what I fell in love with, and what they do is tell the story basically of like Sephardic Jews coming from medieval Spain to the Balkans and then to Israel. You know, so it means, and they're a delicious pastry.
Right.
On top of it all, so
they're a really delicious pastry.
Yeah, I know.
Very lucky to have grown up with those.
We ate a lot of those, and even on the drive back to Philly from the shoot, I ate like 20 of them in the car. So here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna trim a little bit more of this fat off, and then what we're gonna do is take our spices, and we have sort of like a red meat shawarma blend.
Okay.
You can honestly do whatever you want. We've got garlic, onion, paprika, cayenne, and sumac, which is like my favorite thing ever.
It's a great, great spice.
Do you know about sumac?
I do. It's real tangy.
Yep. It's got this sort of dry cherry sour thing going on, and what's nice is that it's not actual, there's no real acidity. What we want to do is have all these spices permeate, right? So when you roast it, you don't get that sort of like flat, like, you know, under-seasoned braised. Like, there's nothing worse than that. You're like, wow, the exterior tastes great and the interior tastes like
Just
cardboard,
bland,
you know?
right.
What we want to do is draw out some of the moisture, and we want to really permeate the spices, so when you get into the center of the lamb roast or the shawarma, you're really getting a bite that is like super flavorful.
We'll return with more from The Chef's Kitchen. We're back with more from The Chef's Kitchen.
Now I have a question for you. How do you know when you've taken off enough fat? Because you still left, quite a bit on, and you obviously want some in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the fat that is super hard and the fat that looks like it's really saturated,
Gotcha.
almost looks like soap, that's kind of what you want to lose. So fat is super, super important, and if we didn't use a fatty cut of meat, this would totally suck. This would not be good. This is not like, fat is important. We're gonna cut this as a roast. We're also gonna do our like house shawarma. Without the fat, it's not going to work.
All right, good to know. And this recipe is in your new cookbook, which
this is.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's a big deal.
It is a really big deal.
This is your second book.
This is our third. We did a Federal Donuts book as well, sort of in the middle. We had to break up 2 Israeli books with a fried chicken and donut book.
Nothing wrong with that.
Super rando, but delicious all the same. Yeah, and I feel like our Zahav book, we were here before it came out, and
it's a beautiful book.
This is like part of our tradition, I think, is everything we come
We're
up
happy
with
to have it.
Yeah, so this book, we took the whole Zahav team, the whole team that worked on the Zahav book, and just said, let's just fly to Israel, and we'll figure this out. Like we'll figure out what this book is about, because the Zahav book was Israeli food through our restaurant in Philly. What we wanted to do was go to Israel and just eat and just shoot, and we were there for 8 days and had 82 meals.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a
pretty
lot of
pretty
food.
serious business.
A lot of food in a
lot
week.
of walking around after that. A lot of water.
I would think.
The beautiful thing is there are so many different, there's so many different gastronomies and cultures, right? We went to all these little off the beaten path places, and we ended up in this little town called Oda Sharon. Here, let me just, can you like massage this a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. We went to this little town called Oda Sharon, and it's like this sort of one-horse town that is not known for anything. It's not like Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. And there's this great falafel shop there that is like my favorite place ever, basically. Nobody knows about it. And I was like, let's pull over the bus, and we're gonna go get falafel here, right? So we get off the bus, and we'd gotten off a block early. And so instead of the one shack that makes falafel, there's one shack that makes sabich, which is an Iraqi-inspired dish. It's fried eggplant with like hard-boiled eggs and tahini in a sandwich.
Yum.
So I was like, all right, well, we're here. Let's just have sabich. We'll shoot this, and it's cool, and it's Iraqi-inspired. And then we start walking towards the falafel shop, and there's a place that does mufleto and like the Tunisian tuna sandwich. So I was like, all right, well, there's one guy that makes tuna sandwiches here. Let's shoot that. It's Tunisian. And then we finally get to the falafel shop, which is 200 feet ahead. And I'm like, we've hit 3 major cultures in a block and a half accidentally. So we get to this falafel shop and we're shooting, and the guy, of course, is super excited. And my dad is always like, that's the best falafel ever. Both of the owners, they drive Audis.
Really?
Which is like, that's the metric for success, right? And so we go there, and the owner is like, sees us shooting, gets really excited, and
does he know who you are?
Absolutely not.
No clue.
Nor does he care.
Right.
And so he comes out with this article that was like a New York Magazine article, and it was talking about his falafel shop, and he was saying, oh, there was a chef in the United States that wrote this, and it was me.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's
which is how you get free falafel in Israel, right? So, okay, so my point is, though, is that you can't walk 100 feet without hitting 3 different cultures,
Which is incredible.
It's fascinating. So here we go. We let this cure overnight in the fridge. You could put this in the oven at low temperature.
Just roast
you have
it like
something
that.
really, really good. If you want to be cool,
and we do.
and
Always.
right, we do. We're gonna tie this guy up.
So it seems like it's firmed up quite a bit. Is that from the curing
It
process?
has,
from the
exactly.
salt?
So what's happening is it's with the cure, you're basically removing some of the liquid.
Yeah.
And you're also like the spices are permeating, and that's what you want. I mean, you can smell this already. It smells like
it smells
pastrami, right?
insane in
Yeah,
here,
it's
yeah.
awesome. So let me just open this up a little bit, and then what we're gonna do is, have you ever butcher twine meat? Have you ever rolled up meat? Okay, okay, great. So we're just gonna roll it up like this.
Just like a burrito.
Just like a burrito, but really 10 pounds of raw lamb. Yeah. and then you eat it. I'm just kidding. Okay, so we're just gonna roll this guy up.
As neatly as you can, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we're going to tie this guy up.
So just regular old butcher's twine.
Regular old butcher's twine that you happen to be having around. My buddy used to take a coat hanger and would take it apart and then wrap up meat like that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
a little bit
I've never
shady.
heard that one before.
All right, so I'm gonna tie this guy up. Now, what you could also do if you wanted to is just simply wrap like little ropes around it and kind of do it.
Do you want to explain what the technique is?
I'm going to
here
show
that
you
you're
actually
doing?
how to
Okay,
do
perfect.
this, and you're going to be able to impress your friends. Ready? Roll it around.
Okay.
And then you pull it, and it sort of self-tightens. So when I worked at Vetri too, this was like part of the thing, because we would have to butcher our ribeyes to order.
Oh, wow.
And I sucked at this, obviously, because I'm like a normal human. And so Mark would make me practice around a weight bench.
Really?
I would be like wrapping this thing around. All right, so we're gonna wrap this guy up, and we're just gonna throw it in the oven at 350 degrees for like 2 hours. And it's
So nice,
super
low and
simple.
slow.
Exactly.
We'll return with more from The Chef's Kitchen. We're back with more from The Chef's Kitchen.
Let's go over.
And 2 hours, that's all this really needs?
That's all it really needs. Now we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna roast this and we can eat it as a roast, and then we're gonna slice it and make like a little bit of shawarma.
That's
with
what
it.
I'm into.
I'm into it as well.
I'm into the sandwich.
Let's take this guy out. So
So that's what it looks like when it's done cooking.
that is. We've got this lamb shoulder. Now we refrigerated a little bit of this because I wanted to show you two things. First of all, we're gonna whack this up and we can eat this literally with rice, like a roast or something. What I like to also do is let this rest, chill it, and then shave it with a knife, and then crisp it in a pan, and you get the sort of like shawarma.
a cheesesteak almost.
I was just gonna say, like an Israeli cheesesteak.
Great minds.
Which we made before
Have you?
at Pat's. Yeah, we made an Israeli cheesesteak, and I even got the owner, who might be here in the audience,
might be.
to pronounce tahina properly. It took an hour
Not
and a
even gonna
half,
attempt
but
that,
it was
but
really.
I'm glad
but he
you
nailed
did.
it after the hour and a half. So check it out. Like to me, leftovers are amazing, right? Leftovers are the best thing ever. But for
Especially
these,
something like this.
Exactly. For our purposes, they're great because you want to be able to throw it in a pan, crisp it up, and we have this beautiful fat, which is going to help sear it. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Now, would
let's
you use
stick
like a
this-
meat slicer at the restaurant to do this?
No, I just use a knife.
Any special technique here?
No, basically the old like try not to slice your finger off technique, but really
That's a
just
good one.
what I like to do is, because it doesn't have to be super scientific, right? And it definitely doesn't have to be perfect, especially with these big cuts of meat. I feel like
Yeah.
I like to almost cut like at angles, you know, because then you get nice sort of wafers and you're not pressured to like slice through the whole thing.
You can see how the spice is all layered up in the middle.
Exactly, and it even smells awesome. Like my favorite thing to eat ever is like porchetta cold, you know? It's just, I think it's like amazing. I feel like it makes a great sandwich, but I think that the benefit of eating the meat cold, it actually doesn't wake your palate up. So
Right.
like you can't cheat with it, you know? So we're gonna take this here and we're gonna use all this to doll up our sandwich.
I like it. I like what I see.
Okay, so we're just gonna put it in a pan. And because we've got that like beautiful seasoned fat already in the meat, we actually don't need to add fat to it, which is pretty awesome.
So that's all gonna
Exactly, it'll render
render
and
out.
crisp. All right, and so while that is going, we're just gonna let that kind of crisp up. We can make a little tahini sauce. Are you cool?
great. You didn't say it right that time.
I know. Tahina, I gotta
Very
practice.
disappointed.
Well, I didn't want you to look at me and be like, what are you talking about? You're speaking like Klingon, you know? So here we go. You're gonna do
Am I whisking?
Yeah, a little bit
Okay.
of whisk.
So is this just the raw tahina?
Yeah, tahina with
Did
an
I do it
L.
right?
Yep, exactly. So that's the raw tahina.
Okay.
And we're just gonna add a little bit of lemon juice to it. And this is, we use an amazing brand called Soom. The seeds are from Ethiopia, they process in Nazareth, and they happen to all be from Philadelphia.
Really?
Which is
Wow.
crazy.
That's super cool.
We're gonna add just like a little bit of ice water to that. Hang on 1 second. You can just like sink water it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing about tahina. It's like you can't. You're like that doesn't look edible, and then you
Well, why
keep
does it
whisking.
seize up when you add the water to it? That's
Because it's
something that never
essentially
really
it's all
made
fat,
sense
you
to
know.
me.
So
Right.
it's like if you added just straight water to like butter, it would not look pretty.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So we're just gonna season it. Great.
So that's just it. Lemon juice, water.
Yeah.
You don't, I know you do like your trick with the garlic.
We do the garlic and all
Yeah.
that too, but for these purposes, we don't really need to. We can add a little bit more water, and then you're gonna end up actually with that.
All right.
Hang on 1 second.
So you end up with this.
Yep. Got this going. Now look what's happening here.
It's starting to really melt down.
It is. It's starting to
Big
melt
time.
down. It's like sort of like, it's got that bacon fat sort of situation going on. And then we can start to assemble a little bit.
Now I want to ask about the two different types of flatbread or pita that you have here.
Of course. So
Explain.
they're actually, one is the pita, and then one is laffa. Laffa is big in Israel. It was basically brought
This
to...
is the laffa?
That's the laffa.
Okay.
It was brought to Israel by the Iraqi Jews in the early 50s.
Okay.
And it's made in a taboon, or like a beehive oven, similar to naan. Right?
Nice.
The proximity to India and Iraq
They,
were
like,
really
stick
similar.
it on the side, same
Exactly,
way?
they whack it on the side. We've got laffa, which is nice and flat, and it makes a really good flatbread. And then we've got pita, which we can cut open and make the traditional sandwich.
We'll return with more from The Chef's Kitchen. We're back with more from The Chef's Kitchen.
So what we're gonna do is heat up our laffas. I'm gonna chop up just a little bit of cucumber and tomato.
Do you always use the little Persian cucumbers
I
like that?
do. The Persian cucumbers are just
Yeah.
like as good as it
They
gets,
have
I
great
think.
texture.
Yeah, and they're also super sweet, you know?
Now you have a falafel restaurant we should mention also.
Yeah, so we've
You're repping
got
it on your shirt.
I am repping it on my shirt, and we also feature it in the book as well.
Nice.
Goldie, which is an awesome falafel shop. It's actually vegan, even though we don't really call it a vegan restaurant, but we make tahini milkshakes,
Nice.
a really sort of herbaceous, well-spiced falafels, and French fries that are kind of briny and delicious. So with the rooster, we take all the bones that we use at Federal Donuts, and we make sort of this big, robust stock, this broth, and we end up using that. And the restaurant is for profit, but we donate 100% of the profit to hungry Philadelphians. So we're like eliminating food waste.
Absolutely,
We're using a great
amazing.
chicken at Federal, and we're providing hospitality to Philadelphians that like don't usually have that. They don't usually have that kind of access.
Yeah.
And then we've got a restaurant called Abe Fisher, which
Love
is
Abe
like
Fisher.
Jewish food, but like through North America and
We had
Europe.
your chef Yehuda on
Yehuda
the-
Seichel is
on the show.
amazing, like
He's
super
great.
talented.
Yep.
And I don't know, Federal, Dizengoff, a hummusia. A lot of restaurants.
You're everywhere,
I guess.
man.
I know.
You're everywhere.
I know. We have a really great team. All right, so what do you like? You like a little tahini on yours?
Hook it up.
Or
I
what?
like everything.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we'll do this.
But I want to know what all of this stuff is.
All right, so this, since we're talking about laffa, which is
Yeah.
Iraqi, this is amba, which people know
Smells
through
like
Indian
curry.
food. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's mango pickle with fenugreek,
Oh,
but
wow.
very, very popular now in Israel because of the Iraqi Jews.
Right.
So amba, tahina, next to it is called
like how you said it right that time.
madbucha. Yeah, I've got just listing things that nobody's going to be able to pronounce. Trust me, they're delicious.
What is this, madbucha?
That is madbucha. Exactly. It's a North African. The Moroccan and Libyan Jews brought it. It's like a red pepper sort of condiment, which
Nice.
is really good.
Spicy?
Similar to caponata.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
These are shivka peppers. They're Bulgarian peppers that are awesome. They're like
Are
the
they
peppercini.
spicy?
They are,
Okay,
and they're
cool.
delicious. Yemenite pickles. We're just going to load this up
Now, do you serve this on the menu anywhere, or this is just straight out of the cookbook?
straight out of the cookbook. This
Nice.
is made for the cookbook.
And are all of these recipes in there as well?
Yeah.
All the condiments?
Every single one of
Nice.
those is on. And you can really, like, in terms of condiments, you can really do kind of whatever you want. I like to load it up with plenty of stuff. We're going to do a little bit of the amba here, which is cool.
And this was all shot in Israel.
So all of it was shot in Israel, and then we decided that we would come back and shoot it on the floor of my one-bedroom apartment in Society Hill.
Really?
Because we wanted to make it accessible, right?
Right.
So if it wasn't something we could do in my crappy, and I know I have an awful kitchen, which is ironic, I know.
It's very ironic, yeah.
And I was like, if we couldn't do it there, then it wouldn't be good for the book,
Right.
because we want everybody to have access to it.
So you said this was made similar to caponata. It's like
Yeah, we
sort
like
of like
stew
an
it down.
agrodolce thing.
Tons of garlic, tons of acid.
Is that a whole piece of garlic?
That is not. Yeah, but it is. But it's slow cooked. It's
That's
fine.
right, I'm into it.
All right, good. Swirl this guy up.
How do you keep that together?
Well, normally you don't put as much as I do in there, but since you're VIP, you know, so we'll just go like this.
So again, we're back. We started with a burrito.
Finish with a burrito.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's gorgeous.
Come on.
And it's dripping everywhere.
Perfect.
That's amazing.
Do some pickles.
So the pickles
Pickles.
really kind of go on the side rather than in it.
You can do in it too. I sort of like to eat I like to eat the pickles on the side as well. Like take a bite of the sandwich, take a bite of pickle.
All right, I'm ready to dig in. Are you?
Yeah, so
You have to eat it with me.
I will. So there's this great chef in Israel named Chaim Cohen. And he was like, Michael, do you know why Israeli men all have back problems? And I was like, I don't know. Is it like an IDF thing? And he was like, no. Because all of the sandwiches that we eat are like this.
Hunched over?
Yeah. And that's
great.
it. Like when you're eating on the street, that's kind of how it goes. So,
all right, cheers.
Cheers, L'chaim.
Whoa.
No words. But really, it's delicious.
I really don't have any words.
It's good.
The amount of flavor going on here is crazy.
It's like punch, it's like balance. But I mean, we obviously like loaded up with lamb, vegetables.
The vegetables,
you know? It's
the
like,
sauce, the tahina,
exactly.
it's bitter, it's really tangy, it's the spices, like you said, it's perfectly balanced. You have the fat, it's meaty, it's crispy, it's crunchy, the bread.
And
I love
easy,
it.
we made it.
It's so good.
Okay, well, thank you so much for
Nailed
having
it.
me. Good job.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank
We had
you.
a great time.
Yeah, and enjoy
Let's do it again. I'm gonna finish this.
Eat it.